Hey there, welcome back to my garden. If you're new here, my name is Lacey and I'm gardening in Western Oregon, Zone 8B. It is early fall and this is a great time, I feel like, to be revamping beds, paying attention to what's working in beds and what's not. So in our last video, we took after the bed that's behind me and took out several of the plants. This has been an area that has been tricky for me for a long time because of the different lighting situation that's in it. It gets really interesting intensities of sun. It's kind of in a nook of our house, so it doesn't get sun until later in the afternoon, which is really hot, but then I also have an arbor next to it that kind of shades parts of it. So it's just been really tricky to work with and to figure out what is going to work in this bed. So last time we took out a lot of plants, as I said, and then I placed in the plants that I had purchased for this area to try out. There's boxwood, there's some heuchera, there's some heucherella, and also just kind of moving around some of the plants that were already here. So let me just turn you around, show you where we left off. I just left everything as I placed it in because I needed a minute to observe it with the different lighting situations to see what I thought of it. And then I decided we were going to pause and then we would go from there. So here we are ready to move forward. So let me just show you where I left off and then we will get going. Okay, so this is just kind of a backed up view of the garden. These are all, as you can see, everything basically in front of me right here is in nursery cans. This is all what I'm going to be working on planting in. On this side over here, I did take out a spirea. If you didn't watch that video, I moved some of the heuchera. There was a heuchera right over here that I moved. I moved these Dusty Miller, shifting these down. I took out some Lonicera, they're bush honeysuckle, I think is what they're called. Took those out and I'm replacing those with boxwood. So these are the green velvet boxwoods. You can see on them right now, it looks like they have some variegation, but they don't keep that on them. I'm not really sure. The only time I really have seen them with variegation on them like that, as you can see just a little bit on the tips, is when they're in the nursery cans. So I think once they get settled into the ground, they don't take that on anymore. So I'm replacing the Lonicera with those for the evergreen interest, some just really nice stately round boxwood balls, as I have through many of my gardens, so that kind of keeps a consistent element throughout the garden beds. And then right here you can see there's a Sergeant Pepper dogwood that I'm going to try because I have good luck with dogwoods in both sun and shade. So I think this will be a good option for tucking underneath this crabapple that's right here above it. Now these do have the possibility of getting pretty large, pretty wide. So I don't know, that the time will tell on how these do in this spot, but I thought it was worth a try because they're absolutely beautiful. They were on a really good price at my local garden center. So I thought that would be a beautiful element to bring in because I do have some barberry up here and just the color echo down here into the heuchera that I'm thinking of putting in. I just thought that would be beautiful. So then up ahead, so up on the edge of the garden here, I'm placing in some of these Carex. See this variety. This is Everglow sedge grass. This is Carex. So this will just be kind of lining the edge because this area is primarily shade. And then there is some Forever Purple heuchera in here. They're kind of dwindling. They're not doing great. So I'm just going to continue on with the heuchera and tuck in these ones that are going to be right in behind it. This variety, let me see if I still have a tag. I took out all the tags yesterday. I'll put up on the screen what variety this is, but these purple ones will be behind there, and then there's some of the grape soda that will be tucked in right here into this spot in the front, just for a little bit of variation on the color. Yes, and the Dusty Miller that I removed from the other spots in the garden bed, I'm just shifting them down here towards the kind of the, I don't know, first third of the garden bed if I was to divide it into thirds, pulling them back into the mid section of the garden bed. And then I have this beautiful hydrangea over here that I'm not sure of the variety. It is a Proven Winners, but it didn't have a tag on it. So I'm not entirely sure what the variety is, but I think I'm actually going to bring that one up forward and put it where this heuchera is here on the corner and tuck in right back there another one of the Sergeant Pepper dogwoods because I went to the garden center and I was able to find two more. And like I said, they were great prices. They were 25, actually they were 30% off. So I thought that might be really pretty just to kind of try to create a bit of a hedge of those right in here. So this area may need a little bit of shifting around, I think, to be able to fit another one right about here. And then I'm going to put the other one on the other side of the spirea right there. And then hopefully it'll kind of cover up that drain spout area, fill in that area. There had been a oak leaf hydrangea there that did not thrive, so I took that out, and I think that the Sergeant Pepper dogwood will be really pretty in that spot. So right up here, this is an area that I didn't really take much out of except for the Lonicera. And in place of those, I will be plopping in some of the boxwood because, again, it's a great evergreen accent for in the bed, and it is one that I have repeated throughout the gardens. So that kind of just helps to tie everything together. So there's a sedum in here. There's some unplugged white salvia that I just planted in this year that had been in containers, and we're not happy really in the containers, and they're doing much better now that they're in the ground. So hopefully these will be true to what they say as far as their zone. They're hardy down to zone 7. So hopefully they will actually come back for me here in my zone 8B garden. Right in the front, there are some hardy geraniums, which I have some little bitty starts coming up in between, but I picked up some really sweet pansies, and I might just plop some of those in between there for some sweet color for right now. And then I cleaned up some different things back here. There was some columbine I cleaned up the Heuchera a little bit. And yeah, and also over here I did take out one of the barberries that just wasn't getting enough sun, so it was kind of a sickly green color. These really need full sun in order to have the color that they're intended to have. This is the Crimson Pygmy variety, and in order to have that color, it really does need the full sun. So you can see kind of on the inside where it doesn't get sun, it is that green color. So I took out one of the barberries from down there, as well as a Heuchera that wasn't getting enough sun. It wasn't doing well. So I just think this view right here is beautiful. So I'm really happy with how this project is moving forward. So now, like I said, what my next step I think will be is I'll actually move all these plants out that I have placed in. I'm going to unearth the drip system that's in there. I have drip tubing that's weaving throughout the bed so that I can expose that, see where it is, so that I make sure that I put in adequate drip line for the rest of the bed as I put in the new plants. I do have just some drip line that has the emitters in the drip tube that I think I'm just going to add to what's already there and just make sure that there's good coverage throughout the bed, because this bed will be pretty densely planted, and so I think that'll be a good way to go rather than needing to run drip emitters directly to each plant. So that's my next step. Is just going to get all these plants out and address the drip system. Okay, so it got everything moved out and exposed the drip system in here, and I can see right away that I have an issue of, not having the drip line covering the inside of this oblong circle here, inside this oval. You can see that it comes forward along where the Heuchera is, and then back here towards the honeysuckle and towards the oak leaf hydrangea, towards the crabapple, and then towards the spirea, but there's nothing run to the center of this area right here. So I think what I'm going to do is bring forward this line, try to see if I can stretch it all the way up here to right along where I'm going to be planting in some of the Heuchera. And I think I'm going to actually run 2 more lines through the center of this area just to see if I can get pretty good coverage whenever I run the drip system, to just kind of create a grid, I guess, in this area. Just because the plants will be, I don't know, there's just going to be quite a few plants in here. So I think I'm just going to try to see if I can stretch this out up here, lay out some drip lines, and see if I can create the grid, run it maybe, and see how good of coverage I can get, see if I can get away with having to put in any individual emitters, and then move forward with the planting. But I really want to make sure that I have adequate drip going through this system before I start putting all of these plants into the ground. And usually I approach it differently. I usually plant first and then run the drip, but just because this is going to be so tight, I think it'll be easier to get the drip down first. So let's go ahead and move on to that task. Okay, now that we have the new drip lines in there, and that'll give a lot better coverage in this garden bed, I'm gonna be sprinkling on some planting compost that I got. If you guys can see what that is. Just premium planting compost with mycorrhizae in it. And this is expandable out to 3 cubic feet. So for this area, I think I should be able to get it to be about 2 inches deep or so, but my main objective for this is just that when I dig the holes for these plants, some of this compost will be actually getting down into, around the root balls. It's not intended to be used as a mulch necessarily. I just want it to be able to be worked down as I plant the bed. I want this compost to work down because this soil is so hard. I feel like it's just straight clay. Even though I've been amending it, I've been putting mulch on it every year, if not maybe every 2 years. But you can see there's a pretty fresh layer of mulch on there. That's usually a compost blend. So even though this bed has been being amended, the soil was still so incredibly hard. I was having a real difficult time even just getting the landscape tacks out to be able to free up the drip tube. So yeah, it is just so hard, and I'm not, well, that's a rock, but anyway, I'm not entirely sure why it is so incredibly hard. Hopefully having some more even coverage of the watering will help to loosen it up, I'm hoping. But in the meantime, as I'm planting in, I'm going to be using some of this compost. And I think, again, because I'm planting in so densely, I'm just going to throw this out around the areas that I'm going to be planting in so that it can get mixed down into the holes as I dig them to plant in the plants. So I'm going to do that next, and then I'm going to start placing the plants back in, starting with kind of the big pieces in the back, probably the dogwoods, get those planted in, and then work my way forward with the boxwoods and the dusty miller that are going around those, and then move my way forward to the heuchera. right, you guys, I'm all finished and I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I'm so happy with how this garden has turned out and I'm excited to show you the finished product. I hope it's easy enough to see with the light as it's coming in. This is just the really filtered afternoon light as it's coming through the climbing rose that's behind me over our arbor. But I hope you can see the color repetition and how just everything kind of communicates with each other and plays off of each other, from the pink in the hydrangea to kind of the pinks in the dogwoods, and then even down to the speckles in these hydrangeas. I just think those are so pretty. Just look at that combination. And then with the Carex down there, I am hopeful that I can keep this garden looking as it does. I honestly, I don't have the best luck with Carex. I don't think I keep it wet enough or something. I'm not sure, but it just sure looks sweet right now. And I just keep trying. I'm kind of determined to have it in my gardens because I just think it is so sweet. So as you can see, there is the repetition of the Dusty Miller. I did purchase another one the other day when I was at the garden center, and so I had two originals to plant back in that I took out the other day, and then this one here in the middle was a plant that I actually purchased for $2. Can you believe that? It's just absolutely beautiful from the garden center. So here's the three of the boxwood, and then I have two of the other ones over here on this side. In the bright sun, but you can see there's one right here, and then there's one tucked in right over here. I ended up going ahead and putting in a couple sweet violas. There's the 1, 2, and 3 right there. I just kind of couldn't resist putting those in that spot. I have about, I think, 8 more that I was going to use for another project, but I figured I could spare 3 for these little openings right here in those spots. So maybe you noticed also I did plant in a grass here. I was feeling like there needed to be some sort of spiky texture in the middle of the garden, just because there's a lot of the mounding forms between the Heuchera and the boxwood, even the barberries back there, and the spirea that's right in the middle right here behind the grass. So it's just kind of the mounding shapes. And so I figured to complement the spikes over there of the salvia, the white salvia, that maybe a grass would look pretty. So this one is a Shenandoah. It'll start taking on a little bit more of a burgundy tone also. So hopefully that doesn't overdo the burgundy color in this bed. I don't know, we'll see. But as of right now, I absolutely love how this bed turned out. I'm excited to see what these dogwoods do. Again, I'm optimistic. I do think that with fixing the drip system through here, bringing it through the middle with a couple more lines will really help keep these plants healthy and give me a chance to really get everything well watered and hopefully keep the entire bed nicely saturated. So I'm so happy with how this turned out. Like I said, optimistic that it is going to stay beautiful. Before we sign off from this project, I just wanted to show you too that I got most of the plants planted in other locations throughout the gardens that I took out of this spot. So we're going to start right here behind me where I put the spirea that we dug out. Hopefully you can see it right here on the edge of this bed. I ended up moving a Heuchera that I think was getting too much sun. I just scooted that one right over here and planted in the spirea. And honestly, the spirea was out of the ground and just kind of soaking in a container for a few days, and it never skipped a beat. The leaves never wilted. It never showed any sign of stress. Was able to get it right in here into some really nice moist soil, and I think it's going to be really happy here. I absolutely love this spirea, and it's already looking really nice in this spot. So then we're going to come down here to the lower gardens. And this is where I planted in all of the Linicera actually. There's 3 right here in this bed. And then I also planted in the Crimson Pygmy right there. And I think it's gonna look so nice next to the Cheyenne Skies Panicum that have the red burgundy shoots coming up in it, and then the nice rich green of the Viburnum that's behind it, and the variegated stalks of the grass that's next to it, and the silvery foliage of the lavender right in front of it. So definitely now that this is going to be getting a lot more sun, it will definitely have a lot more of this burgundy color that it should have. The entire plant should be that, and I have them elsewhere in my garden, and they do perform really well when they get adequate sun. So I'm excited to see that one just fill in this spot. I think it's absolutely perfect. And then I have the Linicera, 2 Liniceras right down here as well. There's another one that we just passed, and these ones are evergreen, so they should just nicely fill in this edge. I'm not sure, I don't remember the habit of these. I think they just kind of stay low. I do think I'm going to prune them pretty hard though, so I can see if I can get them to be a little bit more mounding and not quite so loose, but we'll see. I'm happy with those right there, and I'm happy to have had a spot to put them. And these are a little underwhelming, but this is where I put the sedum that I dug out. This is actually 3 little chunks. I separated the one out into 3 chunks. So there's just a little triangle of those right there. And then right over here in this garden is where I put the variegated Heuchera. I don't know how this guy will do. We are supposed to get some rain tonight, so I think that'll hopefully give it a nice good additional soak and refresh it. I don't know, this is kind of where sad plants go to possibly live on. This is how this Careopteris and this sedum right here, and then here's another one of the Linicera. That's how these guys all end up down here. It's just not an area I see often, so I kind of put plants here in hopes that they may survive, and if they don't, it's not the worst thing in the world. But I am happy where these ones ended up over here. I think they just look really great in this garden, especially because this garden was meant to be for this. It was for moving plants into, transferring plants into once they either outgrew their space or just needed to be moved into a different location. So glad to have actually used this lower garden, this new lower garden, for what I intended on it to be. So by the power of editing, you probably won't realize that this project took me all day, literally all day. I'm pretty tired, so I'm excited to go inside, get some water, maybe watch a football game or a baseball game, and just relax for the rest of the evening. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed how this garden came together as much as I am, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye.